In the great tapestry of Norse mythology, most people know the mighty Odin, his brothers Vili and Ve, and the blood-soaked tales of the Aesir and their battles. Yet buried deep in the oldest layers of myth lies a figure so ancient, so mysterious, that he is often overlooked, Buri, the first god, the progenitor from whom the divine line of the Aesir descends. Without him, there would be no Odin, no Valhalla, no tales of Ragnarok. His presence in the surviving sources is fleeting, mentioned only briefly in the Prose Edda, and yet his role is monumental. Buri stands at the very beginning, a being drawn out of the raw chaos of creation, bridging the gap between the frost giants born from Ymir and the gods who would later rule Asgard. To understand Buri, one must first step back to the primordial void of Ginnungagap, where fire and ice collided in the dawn of time. From the venomous melting rime arose Ymir, the ancestor of the giants, who slumbered in the forming world. Alongside him came the cosmic cow, Auðumbla, a sacred creature whose milk nourished Ymir, but whose tongue unearthed something even greater. As she licked the salty blocks of primordial ice, a figure began to emerge, not monstrous like Ymir, but noble and divine. Day after day, Auðumbla carved his shape from the frozen substance of creation until Buri, tall, strong, and radiant, stood free. What is striking about Buri's myth is its silence. The texts do not linger on his deeds, do not recount wars or triumphs, but simply declare his existence. He is a figure of potential, a god without stories, but not without importance. His significance lies in his seed. Buri fathered Borr, who would take the giantess Bestla as his wife. From this union came the first generation of true gods, Odin, the All-Father and Lord of Wisdom, Vili, who bestowed will and intelligence upon humankind, and Ve, who gave speech and form. Through this lineage, Buri becomes the grandfather of the cosmos itself, for it was his descendants who shaped the world from Ymir's corpse and breathed life into humanity. Buri, then, is the silent ancestor, the hidden root of the world tree, Yggdrasil. His tale is not told in grand sagas, but whispered through genealogies. He represents emergence, the first spark of order rising from chaos, a reminder that even the gods themselves have forgotten origins, buried in the ice of time. Though his myths are few, his shadow stretches long, for without Buri there could be no Norse mythology at all. In the beginning, the universe was a silent, formless void, known as Ginnungagap, flanked by the icy realm of Niflheim to the north and the fiery expanse of Muspelheim to the south. Here, amidst this emptiness, lived Auðumbla, the great primeval cow, who sustained herself by licking the salty ice that formed the boundaries of Niflheim. For 3 days and nights, Auðumbla's tongue traced over the frozen blocks, uncovering shapes and forms as she went. On the third day, the ice began to yield a figure, and from this emergence, Buri appeared. He was not clothed in ordinary flesh but in a radiant, almost shimmering form that reflected the interplay of fire and ice. His eyes opened to see the vast emptiness of Ginnungagap, and the universe seemed to acknowledge his presence. Buri's awakening was not merely a physical emergence but a moment when consciousness and potential energy coalesced into a being destined to guide the nascent cosmos. As Auðumbla grazed near him, Buri instinctively understood the rhythm of existence, the tides of fire, the flow of ice, and the silent hum of potentiality waiting to be transformed into order. He wandered across the void, touching the raw elements with curiosity and reverence, discovering the hidden structures in the chaos around him. Though he did not yet wield dominion over the realms, his presence alone created subtle shifts in the formless void. Light began to reflect off the ice in softer patterns, the winds of Muspelheim stirred into gentle currents, and the cosmos seemed to breathe with anticipation. In time, Buri's thoughts turned to companionship and legacy. He desired others who could share in the work of shaping existence, though the world offered no immediate answers. Thus, he settled into the quiet patience of primordial creation, laying the seeds of the divine lineage that would follow him. Auðumbla continued her grazing, and from her nurturing presence, Buri's form grew stronger, more defined, until he was no longer simply a being emerging from ice but a sovereign figure, destined to sire the generations of gods. His awakening marked the subtle beginning of cosmic order, a precursor to the unfolding of the Aesir line, where every thought and gesture would resonate through the realms of gods and mortals alike. Though Buri stood alone in the beginning, he was not destined to remain solitary. From his essence came Borr, his son, born not by any ordinary union but as a natural extension of Buri's being, a continuation of the divine principle that he embodied. Borr, strong and thoughtful, inherited his father's command over form and order, yet also carried the curiosity and drive to act upon the universe rather than simply observe it. As Borr matured, he wandered through the early cosmos, guided by the quiet wisdom of Buri, encountering both fire and ice, wind and water, learning to temper the raw forces of creation into patterns that could sustain life. Borr eventually encountered Bestla, a giantess whose lineage tied her to the primal forces of the cosmos. Together, they bore 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve. These sons would go on to establish the foundations of the Aesir pantheon, but their story began in the shadows of Buri's influence. Buri watched as the universe shifted around them, each act of creation echoing the lessons he had absorbed while awakening from the ice. He rarely intervened directly in their actions, but his presence was felt in every calculated decision, in every victory over chaos. Odin, the eldest, displayed an insatiable curiosity and hunger for wisdom, often pushing boundaries that even Buri might have approached cautiously. Vili embodied understanding and reason, seeking balance in every act, while Ve wielded the sacred energy of ritual and sacred law. Together, the 3 brothers began to craft the worlds, shaping lands, seas, and skies, yet it was the silent legacy of Buri that guided their hands, reminder that all life and order flowed from the primordial emergence of the first god. Stories say that in moments of great peril or cosmic imbalance, Buri's spirit could be sensed by the Aesir, a quiet, steady force reminding them of the primordial rhythms that shaped reality. The myths tell of his eyes, even in dreams, reflecting both the fire of Muspelheim and the cold clarity of Niflheim, an eternal symbol of unity between opposites. It was this balance that allowed Odin and his brothers to confront the giants, tame the wild forces of the world, and establish Asgard as a seat of divine governance. Though Buri's direct deeds are few, the myth emphasizes that without his emergence and quiet guidance, the Aesir would lack the foundation necessary to bring order from the chaos that predated all things. In essence, Buri's legacy was woven into the very fabric of the cosmos, a subtle but unbreakable thread that ensured the survival and flourishing of the divine line. Even in silence, Buri's presence shaped the destiny of gods and men, a testament to the enduring power of beginnings and the eternal importance of origin. Though Buri did not walk the worlds as boldly as his descendants, his influence remained woven into the tapestry of fate itself. Legends tell that even after the birth of Borr and the rise of Odin, Vili, and Ve, Buri continued to watch the unfolding of creation from the margins of existence, a silent guardian of cosmic order. In the earliest ages, the realms were turbulent, filled with unbridled giants, restless elements, and chaotic spirits that threatened the fragile structure of the universe. It was during these times that Buri's subtle power became most evident. Some myths describe him appearing as a towering figure of shimmering ice and radiant light, a vision glimpsed only by those attuned to the primordial forces. He would guide the hands of his grandchildren, whispering wisdom that allowed them to navigate the delicate balance between fire and frost, strength and cunning, ambition and restraint. One tale recounts how, when Odin sought to acquire the runes and the secrets of magic, he stood at the edge of the void, uncertain how to wield such power responsibly. In that moment, a presence both gentle and immense stirred in the cosmos, as if the ice itself had taken form to observe him. Though Buri did not speak directly, Odin sensed the weight of his ancestor's gaze, a reminder that every act of creation carried consequences and that the wisdom of beginnings must guide all endings. In other legends, Buri's influence is linked to the cycles of life and death, the turning of seasons, and the rhythms of the cosmos. It is said that the tides, the winds, and even the growth of forests bear the echo of his awakening, an enduring resonance of his first steps from the ice. Mortals, too, felt his unseen hand. When villages endured harsh winters or when rivers flooded, it was understood that such events were part of the same divine balance Buri had set into motion. While he never wielded weapon or throne like the gods who followed him, Buri's legacy was a deeper kind of power, the power to awaken potential, to set in motion the processes that shape all existence. His story, though subtle, is a reminder that the foundation of all things, gods, humans, and the natural world alike, rests upon the quiet emergence of a single, primordial being. In this way, Buri becomes more than the first of the Aesir. He is the living embodiment of creation's latent order, a presence felt whenever balance is sought or destiny is approached. To honor Buri, the myths suggest, is to acknowledge the hidden structures of the universe, the silent forces that guide life's unfolding, and the eternal truth that even the mightiest gods are shaped by those who came before them. Buri's enduring influence reminds the cosmos that beginnings matter, and that from the simplest emergence, an ice-liberated form, can flow the destiny of worlds. Even after the birth of his descendants, Buri's influence continued to extend across the raw cosmos. The myths tell that Buri, in his solitude, wandered the unformed lands between Muspelheim and Niflheim, and wherever his presence passed, the elements themselves began to take shape. The fire of Muspelheim, once chaotic and consuming, was tempered by his touch into a life-giving warmth, suitable for sustaining beings yet to be born. The icy expanses of Niflheim, in contrast, were carved and polished, creating rivers, glaciers, and mountains that would endure through the ages. One legend recounts that Buri's hands, immense and radiant, traced the currents of the primordial winds, guiding them into patterns that would later become the storms and breezes of Midgard. The earth's surfaces, once shapeless frost and ash, bent beneath his steps, forming fertile valleys, deep oceans, and jagged peaks. In these tales, Buri is portrayed less as a god of action and more as an artist of existence. The very textures of the world, the sound of running water, the hiss of fire, and the crackle of ice all bore the echo of his initial designs. It is said that animals, too, owe their earliest forms to Buri's explorations. He imagined creatures that could endure the extremes of fire and frost, sculpting their bodies from the elements themselves. Wolves, eagles, and bears, every being of strength and cunning, was in some way touched by his primordial essence. Even the first trees, rising from the frozen soil, were said to have grown in shapes inspired by the balance Buri found between Niflheim's chill and Muspelheim's warmth. In this myth, Buri is both progenitor and craftsman, a reminder that the cosmos is not merely created but carefully shaped, and that every rock, river, and flame owes a debt to the silent work of the first god. The myth emphasizes that while Odin and his brothers would later govern the worlds, it was Buri's enduring touch that allowed the realms to exist in harmony, giving substance and texture to the forms that would populate Asgard, Midgard, and the wider universe. Another thread of Buri's myth concerns his role as a keeper of knowledge, long before the written runes or the teachings of Odin. Legends describe Buri wandering the void, observing the interactions of fire, ice, and emerging matter, pondering their secrets. He saw the patterns of stars forming in the heavens and the cycles of creation repeating across time, recognizing that the universe was bound by laws both visible and hidden. In one story, Buri discovered a hidden chamber within the icy expanse of Niflheim, where crystals reflected the future in infinite patterns. These crystals, it is said, contained glimpses of events yet to unfold, the rise of gods, the creation of humankind, and even the eventual decay of worlds. Buri studied them silently, learning the rhythms of existence and the weight of choices yet unmade. Though he rarely intervened directly, Buri left subtle lessons for his descendants. Odin, in his quest for wisdom, is believed to have unconsciously absorbed patterns from Buri's original insights, glimpsing the cosmic order in dreams and meditations. Vili and Vili, too, benefited from Buri's unseen guidance, gaining the understanding necessary to establish laws, rituals, and moral codes among gods and men. This myth portrays Buri as the silent architect of wisdom, a figure whose influence lies not in action but in foresight and comprehension. Mortals, too, were indirectly touched by this knowledge. Seasons, cycles of birth and death, the rise and fall of fortunes, all were shaped by principles that Buri discerned and passed on in hidden ways. Even the Norns, the weavers of fate, are sometimes depicted as working within threads that Buri had first set into motion, their weaving an extension of his primordial understanding. Buri's role as keeper of wisdom underscores a recurring theme in Norse mythology. That the universe is not solely governed by force or valor, but by insight, balance, and foresight. His silent presence reminds gods and mortals alike that beginnings shape destinies and that the first spark of consciousness carries within it the seeds of all knowledge to come.